You guys are live. So,
Thank you, Harsh. Um, Harshvardhan sir, you may start now. Wait a minute, sir. We'll start the meeting. First, we have our host to introduce everything to us. Anisha, over to you.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you for joining us today for this special Python guidance session. So, today I, Anisha, and Isha, Secretary of Corbett House, will be our host for this evening. So, this session is designed basically to help you guys to strengthen your foundation in Python and gain some practical insights into how it's used in real world data projects. So whether you are just starting or you have to brush up your basics, you are on the right place. So Isha, please.
Hey, everybody. Um, I think I'm visible, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we are thrilled to have with us Harshvardhan Singh, a highly respected data science and analytics mentor. He has trained over 2,000 learners in Python, machine learning, deep learning, NLP, and more. Harshvardhan sir brings a wealth of experience in tools like SQL, Excel, and LLMs, and he's known for turning complex data concepts into easy to understand solutions. Today, he will be walking us through not just Python basics, but also how to think like a data problem solver. Without further delay, I'd like to hand it over to Harshvardhan sir. Another thing, during the session, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section. Please do not post it on the chat box, or else they will go ignored since we have many participants. Over to you, sir.
Perfect. So, hi everyone. My name is Ashwin Singh, and as everyone mentioned, I am a data analyst and a data scientist here at Geeks. I've been in this field as a data scientist for more than 2.5 years, 1.5 year as a data analyst, and I've seen the transition that happens actually when you transition from data analytics to data science. So, data science is a huge term right now, and everyone is excited for that, right? Today, I was informed to talk about Python, right? But I was also asked to talk about AI and ML, right? So I'm going to talk about that as well, right? Because that's a burning thing that you should guys know. Now, before I continue with the session, can the moderators tell me that are these guys like the first year, second year, third year? What's the bifurcation here?
Sir, the IITM students are in the foundation level, that is the
Mhm.
first year.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So if you are in the first year and you are actually moving out to this field as a data analyst or data scientist, I want to let you know about what exactly is happening in this field as well, right? Because Python is one thing, learning Python is one thing, that is understandable. Everyone can learn Python, right? But how exactly you're going to utilize Python and what's the mindset that goes behind utilizing Python? That is the crux. That is something that I want to elaborate in today's session. Now, initially, if I'm entering into the field of data analytics and data science, initially talking about as a data analyst, right? The major key tools that you're going to use is you have Excel, you have SQL, you have Python, and finally you have a visualization tool that is either Power BI or you have Tableau. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, these are the tools that are necessary for you. Now, one of them is utilizing Python. Now, as a data analyst, I'll tell you that initially, if you talk about Excel, right? So every tool has their limitation. Every tool has their pros and cons. That is the reason you are using that, or that is the reason you're not using that. If I'm talking about Excel as a data analyst, the thing is that just one second. Okay, sorry for that. So as I mentioned that if you are a data analyst, right, and you're transitioning into this field, so First tool that you're going to learn is Excel, and everything has a limitation, as I mentioned. So the problem with Excel is that it has limited amount of data. It can work on a limited amount of data, right? The second part of the question that you learn is, second part of the second tool that you learn is, as a data analyst, is using SQL. So SQL is structured query language, right? So you use a query and you put that query in a database, and the database returns your set of objects, and you utilize them to do the analysis. That's what we do in as a data analyst, as in using SQL. Now, as I mentioned, SQL also has the limitation. And what is SQL? The limitation of SQL is something like that, that you're unable to create visualizations, right? You cannot create visuals. That is the major drawback of using uh, SQL. Now, if I transition into programming language, that is Python, right? First of all, why we're using programming language? Can guys in the chats be responsive for that? Because I don't want this session to be a sleeping session or something like that. I want it to be interactive. So if you guys can interact, it would be healthy for me, right? So it should not be a one-way session. Now, why are we using a programming language? First of all, that's the case. Why are we using programming language? Anyone in the chats? To make our lives easier, right? To build software, automation, okay. To interpret machine language, machine computer, okay. Okay, yeah, solving problems, right? So if I fundamentally boil it down, the major thing that we are using programming languages to break the layer of abstraction. You all have, if you've not heard the concept of OOPS, I'm sure you're going to learn that. You're currently in the first year, but you're going to learn all these things. So there is a fundamental concept of OOPS in object-oriented programming language. That is the concept of abstraction. If I talk about abstraction, what exactly abstraction is, that basically you are provided with a set number of things, right? You're provided with a set number of things, and some things are hidden from you, right? So not everything is visible to you. Only the set things that are needed for you are visible. Otherwise, everything is hidden to you. Let's take an example for that. An example for that would be that if you're driving a car, right, and you want to turn left, what exactly are you going to do? You're just going to turn your lever, your steering to left, and the car will automatically turn left, correct? Now, that's exactly what's going on, but you don't know the entire science that goes behind rotating that lever to the left. No, because you understand that if you just turn it left, everything is going to turn left. That's it. There's no problem with that, right? Because that's not your task to do or your task to learn. That is the same thing that a programming language does. So programming language helps you break the barrier between a normal thing which is hidden from you and something that is not hidden from you. So it just breaks and shatters all that layer. So you can go deep inside that and learn all those things, that why exactly something is operating in the same way. And if you can do that, you can customize that as well. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, SQL, Excel, these are kind of your easy tools. Now, if I'm talking about a tool, that means they are customized to do a certain piece of thing. Like if you've used Excel, right? You just drag and drop certain kind of thing and a chart appears out of the blue, right? So what exactly is happening is its entire thing is coded, entire thing is written inside a code. And you're just using that drag and drop to reflect that code, execute that. That's the same thing. So if we use a programming language, then the entire thing is going to be easier because I'm going to break through the concept of abstraction, and whatever the drag and drop is doing, I can do that, and even I can customize that. One more thing about using these programming languages, that if I talk about tools like Tableau or Power BI, something like that, right? Again, if you're going to a startup or if you're going to a newly funded company, they probably are going to look for a Python developer compared to a Power BI developer or a Tableau developer. Why is that the case? Because Power BI and Tableau, both are your visualization tools. These are not very helpful. They are very helpful, but they are costly. That's the thing. They are very costly. They are like you have to buy plans for teams and you have to buy plans for individuals. And mostly startup companies or the newly funded companies don't have much amount to pay for that. That's the case, right? So what exactly you're going to do is you are going to use they are going to look out for Python developers who already have the basics jotted down, and they can just do the same thing using using the principles of coding. So I can do whatever it is doing in my Python, in my coding environment. I can do the same thing. So that is something that is happening. So if you break through the level of abstraction, you can customize them as well to your own need. Now, my second question to you is, why exactly we're using Python? There are n number of languages, like you have C, you have C++, you have Java. Why are we using Python? Why are we using Python, guys? What is the case?
Because we generally do the main thing from Python. We don't have to keep in mind the syntax, etc. We the main thing, which is problem solving. So Python helps us in that part, and
Okay.
also a large amount of libraries too.
Yes. So syntax is one thing, it's easier is another thing, and yeah, because it's the easiest language. Let's go to be written, yes. And there are a lot of modules. It's more like English and large language, like perfect. That's the case. The major crux thing why we're using Python is because of the rich library base. Now, what exactly are libraries? I'll let you know. You've heard the name as functions. Now, what does function do? It's something like that. Suppose you have to run a certain piece of code. You have to rewrite that certain piece of code again and again, right? Rather than doing that, I'll create a function for this. And whenever I want to use that piece of code, I can call a function, and then function will return everything like that. That's entirely how a function works. The reason I told you about function is because understand that there's a huge bag. There's a bag. You have your school bags, right? So if you open up a school bag, you have multiple notebooks inside it, and assume these notebooks are your functions, and this entire bag is your library, right? So that's how a library works. So the entire backpack is a library, and it has notebooks or functions inside, right? That's how libraries work. So because of huge amount of rich library base, that is the reason we're using these libraries. Now, you have multiple number of libraries. You have libraries like pandas, you have numpy, you have matplotlib, you have cbond. If you've heard the name as tensorflow, right? If you've heard the name as uh, tensorflow, you've heard the name. If you've heard the name of you have different libraries. Can you guys let me know about few more libraries apart from these? TensorFlow, you have NumPy, you have Pandas, you have scikit-learn, right? Any other library that comes to your mind? PyTorch, yes. Turtle, yes. Right. So there are a lot of libraries. And what exactly is happening in these libraries is that some developer has written, yes, scikit-learn, right? So some developer has written that certain piece of code. They have programmed a function, and you're just utilizing that piece of code. So you can write that certain piece of code on your own as well, right? Why we are not writing that piece of code is we can write that piece of code, but why we're using those libraries is it is comparatively much more faster than the whatever code we are going to write. Again, why is that the case? If I talk about that, let's take an example of certain libraries. Let me share my screen. Right. So if I talk about certain libraries, like if you, okay, I request the host to turn off the mic for everyone.
Sure, sir, we'll do that.
Right. So as I mentioned, if you've heard the name TensorFlow, right? So TensorFlow is again a library of what? It's library created by whom? Can anyone let me know who exactly has created this TensorFlow? Who's the creator for this? Which company has created this? Anyone? Let me check the comments. There's comments. Yes. Who has created the library TensorFlow? Anyone? Google, yes. Right, so Google has created this. And there's another known as Keras, if you heard the name Keras. You have scikit-learn, so TensorFlow, PyTorch. PyTorch is created by Facebook or Meta developers. So what exactly is happening is that obviously we are learning these languages and we can do the same piece of code, but they have written it in a much more organized, in a much more efficient manner, so that they're using less space complexity, less time complexity. Overall, the code is very simpler and it is comparatively very faster than what exactly we're going to do. Why? Because we understand the basic concepts of Python, and we don't know the concept exactly of space complexity and time complexity, how to decomplexify your code. So basically, whatever code you're writing, if you heard the name of loops, you use loops to do a certain piece of task. But again, what is happening is if you engage in multiple loops into the same piece of code, it could hinder with your efficiency. Your code could take a lot of time to do the execution, whatever it is doing. So it's better to use data structures like list, couple, dictionary, set, right? They're more efficient in storing the data, right? So these are the techniques that they have already done. And once these techniques are done, they have stored that inside a function and clubbed them together to create a library. That's exactly what library is. Okay. Now, if I go back to a code editor, right? So you can choose any code editor, like you have VS Code, you have uh, Cursor, if you heard the name, you have a lot of things like you have Collab and all. So the major thing why we're using Collab is because you have a lot of efficiency. You have a because everything is written here, everything that you're uploading here, everything that you're it's done on your cloud, right? So you don't need to store anything in your local in your local system. And if you think that your local system is not that efficient, that's absolutely okay. There's no such problems with that, because if you check here, this is, you can use a custom GM as well, not this. Okay, change runtime type. Okay, so you can see that there are different accelerators that you have. You have CPUs, you have GPUs, you have TPUs. If you've heard the name of CPUs, GPUs, and TPUs, what exactly are these? Are basically these are your processors. You have your CPU installed on it. Now, if you want to you want to use more power, you want your system to have more power, then what you're going to do is you're going to use a upgraded version of CPU or a GPU. So let's take an example that a certain piece of code that is executing and keep on executing, it's supposed taking 2 days to execute the same piece of code. Using a GPU, it could boil it down to 1 day or even half a day, right? And then there is something that is an advanced version of GPU, that is your TPUs, that could do the same piece of code in 1 hour. So it's decreasing them by an exponential level, right? So that's exactly what everything is doing. And yes, so basically that is the reason we're using this Collab. It is providing you with a lot of hardware accelerators. So you have CPUs, GPUs, and TPUs for free. Now what is happening is, suppose you select a TPU, somewhere the TPU is placed, you're going to use a cloud service, and the cloud is going to provide you with everything. Okay. Now, if I talk about Python, the very basic program to run is print, right? It's an inbuilt function. First is you are a function, you're using a function, and then you have a basics inbuilt function, then you have a user created function, right? So as I mentioned, inbuilt function is something that the developers have already created. Perfect. So that's the kind of inbuilt function. The first thing that you learn in any programming language is to learn to say the word hello world, right? So we're going to follow the tradition, we're going to do that, and I'm going to write hello world. If I talk about print statement, print function, whatever it is going to do is, it is going to provide you with the answer. 1 second. Let me share this tab itself. Okay. Not open the tab in this spot. Okay. No worries, I'll have to share my. Okay. So as I mentioned, yes. So first thing that you're going to learn is to print the word hello world, right? Then there are things that you need to learn. Then there is something known as a variable. What exactly is a variable? What are the basic data types? Next thing that you're going to learn is how to comment them out. So if you want to use comments, you can use hashes. If you want to use multi-line comments, you can use docstring. This is known as docstring. Whatever you write inside this, it's not going to be executed. This is a docstring with nothing written. That's the reason it is getting executed. if I have something like print written, then it is only going to print this. This is inside a doc string, so it is omitted out. Okay. The same thing if I use a hash, now the certain piece of code is not going to run. There is one more thing, that is the concept of a py file and an ipynb format file. So py file is something that you have. If you do, you have an idea of what's the difference between a py file, .py and .ipynb format file? Anyone? If you could write that in the chat. Jupyter Notebook, yes. Okay. Okay. So an example of py file would be this. This is your py file. Let's take this. This entire thing is your py file. Okay. So if you run this certain piece of code, everything is going to be executed at the same time, right? And this is your example of an ipynb format. So it's the same thing. It's just a notebook. What happens in a notebook is you have certain tabs in which you can write the piece of code. Suppose in this tab you can write the piece of code and you can run this. In this tab you can run the piece of code. So whereas if I'm talking about a .py format file, it is going to execute everything at once. That's the thing, right? Now, I want to know that do you guys know the difference between? Do you know what's exactly a compiler and an interpreter as well? And how do you classify Python? Is it an is it a compiler language or is it an interpreter language? Is Python compiler or interpreter? Okay. Okay, everyone says interpreter. That means if I'm talking about compiler and interpreter, one thing is, what does compiler do? They are going to compile, they're going to run everything in the same go, everything at the same time, right? If I'm talking about interpreter, it's going to do the same piece of code line by line. So every line is going to check the certain piece of code and it's going to run that. Okay. Yes, whole at once, and interpreter takes line by line execution, right? Now, you mentioned that Python is your interpreter, right? Let's check. Is Python interpreter or compiled? Python is both interpreted and compiled. How is it? It can be called as an interpreter language, but it conveys both the properties of compiler and interpreter. Because once it starts with the entire thing, initially it compiles the entire piece of code. That means it gathers all the prerequisites. If I'm talking about a library use case, something like that. Suppose a library is being called. So initially in the compiling phase, it compiles everything, it gathers all the resources, and then it works as an interpreter. So it executes line by line piece of code. And one more thing, Python understands the concept of pointers. Python does not believe in the concept of execution by the block. That means if I am writing a variable, okay, so if I'm writing a as a variable and I'm storing the value as 12, I can directly store that. And the people who are new to Python, they'll understand that yes, a is equal to 12. So what's the problem with that? The problem is if you go to any other programming language, then you'll understand the problem. The thing is that in any other programming language, you just have to initialize that what exactly you're going to ask for. What exactly is the thing that you're going to call. Okay, so if you have created a variable, now what is exactly a variable is? Variable is your basic variable is something that is a container. In that container, you're storing something, right? So that's exactly what a variable is. Now, there's a certain nomenclature behind it as well, that how exactly you can name a variable and everything. So we're not going to get that deep inside it. That's something that you can understand on your own. Now, as I mentioned, if I'm talking about any other language, what is going to happen is that if you have written certain piece of code, okay, and suppose you have executed a block of a variable a with the value 12 associated to it. So you're going to store 12 in a variable a. Now, what exactly is happening is, suppose in any other programming language, what I'm doing is I'll have to initialize it first, that okay, memory, listen to me, memory or storage, listen to me. I want to create a block. I want to create a block in the storage, okay, of this and this size, and this in this I'm going to store an integer value itself. Okay, you'll have to define these conditions first. You'll have to define these conditions first. So if I show you an example for that, this would be very helpful. If you, if I get the perfect example, just one case, yes. Yeah. So this is the piece of code that you write once you have to execute the line hello world. Correct? Okay, let it execute. Right. So it has executed. Now let's check the same piece of code for C++, and let's check the same piece of code for Java. And then let me show you about, I think React.js. Okay. Let's talk about C++. This entire piece of code is the same as writing hello world. So if I run this, it is going to execute hello world itself. But just check the complexity that it involves now. It is an 8-line piece of code. So initially it is using something as system, then it is public class, then it is a void main, then console.write. If I'm talking about Java, again, it's consisting of 3 to 4 lines easily. What is public main? Then you have to public void main, string, arguments, print. If I'm talking about React.js, right? So export, default, function, app, then you're going to return the same. This is comparatively easier, right? So this is how Python is actually easy compared to any other language. You just have to write print hello world and everything is going to be executed as it is. Why? Because it follows the concept of pointers. That means in a space, wherever a block is storing the value as 8, okay, in an empty space, a block is storing a value as 8. Now, what happens with Python is it points in towards that direction. They say that, okay, understand this, that you have A, you want to assign the value as 8, then I'm going to point you in the direction where 8 is being placed in the memory. Okay. Now, what is happening is that suppose after A is equal to 12, I am going to write A is equal to Harsh. So what is happening? Initially A is 12 and then A is Harsh. That means initially in the memory it was pointing to a direction where 12 was placed. Now it is pointing you to a direction where Harsh is being placed. So it's just changing the pointers. That's it. It's not initially creating a storage in the memory saying that no, this is your place now and you have to always sit here and only integer class is going to enter inside it. That's not how programming language Python works. It's not rigid. Then you have your data types. You have different kind of data types. You have data types like int, float, you have char, long, a lot of things exist. But if I'm talking about the fundamental one of them, then the fundamentally could be derived to, you have integer, you have string is basically your text, you have float, and you have boolean, right? So if I'm talking about boolean, what exactly is it? It's the closest to the machine language that you have, that is true and false. Perfect. After this, you have your concept of variable. You understand how exactly variables work. You'll understand about the nomenclature as well, how exactly we initialize them. Then we understand something as conditional statements. What exactly is conditional statement is? If I have to execute a piece of code, if I have to print something only when a certain condition is being met. Here, the prerequisites for this is to understand the concept of logical operators. That is, and, or, not. Right? These are your basic executors. So what exactly and or not does? It's the same as English language. So if you say I want tea and coffee, that means I want tea and I want coffee. I want both. Okay, only when both is provided, then I'll be happy. Right? It's same as if one condition is true, another condition is true, then only I'm going to return true. If one condition is true, another is false, then I'll not be happy. I'll just place a false. That's how and works. If I'm talking about or, it's the same as if I'm saying that I want tea or coffee. That means either you provide me tea or either you provide me with coffee. If anything is available, I'll be happy. Right? Those are your logical operators. Now, to execute those conditions, if I'm saying if Let's take an age. Age is again a variable. I'm storing age as 19. Now if I say if age is greater than equals to 18, okay, and one more thing that I want to explain that I just forgot, I'll tell you. This is print hello world, whereas if I'm writing print, okay, hello world, if I run this, I am going to get an error. And in that error, it is going to tell me that the name print is not defined. Okay, so where is the problem? The problem is that you are not using, you're using a capital P initially, whereas it is a small p. So with this, I can symbolize that yes, Python is basically case sensitive in nature. And if it has defined something print with small p, then it is how it's going to run throughout life. Okay. Python is easy, but you have to follow the syntax and you have to follow a thing known as indentation. Indentation is something that you have to take care of. Now, if you want to execute a conditional statement, I've written if and then a condition. If this condition is satisfied, then do something for me. So I'm writing if and whatever the condition is. After that, I'm writing a colon. Okay. This colon, why you're writing a colon? It is mandatory to write that. Okay. It's just the syntax. And once you hit enter after it, you can see that a corresponding space block has been provided to you. It's one tab space or two normal spaces, right? This is the concept of indentation. The concept of indentation says that if whatever is written is indented or it is tab space, that means whatever I'm writing is going inside this if condition. Okay. So if I write print eligible, and if I execute this, it's going to execute this word eligible only because the condition was justified here. If I'm writing a condition like 15, it's not going to do anything because it has not executed and it was not eligible for us, right? Because the condition was not satisfied, that is the reason it did not execute. Now, if follows a clause of else as well. So if and else is a pair. If this happens, then well and good. Otherwise, for any other condition, you're going to print not eligible. Okay. So now if it is not eligible, it is demonstrating that. There are certain cases in case, so the screen is stuck like you're right, like when you write the line of code, okay. Let me share it. What happens is, let me in fact open a Brave browser itself. Okay. Just give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Can someone let me know if the screen is visible? Yes or no in the chats. Okay, perfect. Right. So as I mentioned, yeah, as I mentioned, now it is eligible if follows a concept, if follows a pair of else. Okay. Now I want to set certain boundary conditions. What I mean by boundary conditions is, suppose I want to execute something saying that if you are within the brackets of say 18 to 100, then you should print something like eligible, right? Eligible if you are between 0 and 18, 0 and 17, then you should write child, right? And any other condition you should write not eligible or invalid. Let's take invalid as it is. Okay. Now what is happening is that you have three conditions, right? You have condition first as eligible, then you have child, and similarly you have invalid, right? Now what is happening is I don't have these pairs with me. I only know if, I only know else. That means I can work only on two conditions. But no, that's not the case. What happens is that in case you want to use any other condition, so you write, let's take again an age of 17, let's say. Okay. Now what I'm doing is, let's take a. Now what I'm doing is, if I'm writing if age is greater than equals to 18, if that's the case, then you can print what? Eligible. Okay. Now in the else clause, I've already given that you have, for any other condition, you just have to write invalid. But there's another condition of child as well. I cannot justify that because of the if and else. Should I write another if? No, that's not needed. Because in the concept of if and else, you also have a concept of else if you want to apply, yes, multiple condition of if, you can use something known as elif, right? So it's something like elif, and then you can again mention whatever the condition is. So let's take the condition is greater than 0, less than 17. Now it's a child. So this condition is justified. So conditional statement is more about that if a certain piece of logic is working, it's executing, then you are going to run that, right? Otherwise, what's going to happen is in the else clause, whatever it's present is going to do that. That's the entire thing of conditionals. That's the entire basic concept of conditionals. Next, if I talk about the concept of loops, so you have two kind of loops. You have your basic for loops, you have your while loops, you have do while loops. Do while loops don't exist in Python, but yeah, that's something good to do. So if you're using loops, you use something known as a range function. So if I talk about range, if I'm writing 5, that means it is going to have a value between 0 and 5. So if I'm writing for I in range 5, that means what I'm doing is I'm saying that for the range 5, that means start from 0, go till 5, just print this I. Okay, so it's going to start from 0 and it will go till 5. But you can see it's not going till 5. Okay, that means it follows the concept of n minus 1. Yes, 0 to 4. The same thing is happening. So you have there are multiple parameters that you can give. That is, first is your start parameter, then is your stop parameter, and then you also have a step parameter. So if I write this, that means start from 1, go till 5, and have a step of 2. That means print the first value 1, then take a step count of 2. That means 1 and 2 emitted, third value, then 3 and 4 emitted, 5. But we're not going till 5 because it always goes till n minus 1. That's again the basic concepts. Yes, that's again the basic concept of your basic loops. Okay. Now, what happens is you can involve technologies like you can involve concepts like loops, and you can involve the concepts like conditional merge together to do certain piece of questions. Right now, because of a time constraint, I cannot give you the questions for that. The next topic that you're going to learn about is you have the concept of basic data structures. Okay, so if you're studying the concept of data structures, then that's entire concept, different thing that you have linked list, you have stack, you have queue, you have heap, right? So all those are a different concept, but we don't use that high concepts right now because we're just learning the concept of data analytics and data science. So we're going to learn the concept of list, tuple, dictionary, set. If I'm talking about list, this is how a list is being initialized. If I write something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can print the same thing. Now, a problem that occurs is that why exactly we're using the concept of data structures? When everything was sorted, everything was well, why exactly are you using the concept of data structures? The reason we're using the concept of data structures is because if I'm talking about, let's take an example in which you have to take care of a school. Okay, you have your entire school and you have an entire class. Now, for every class, you want to store the roll numbers of every person. So what you're going to do is you've learned up till variables. So what you're going to do is you're going to write roll number underscore 1 is equal to then whatever the roll number is associated. Roll number underscore 2, then the roll number associated. Suppose there are 100 people in the class. So you're going to create 100 variables for that. Next, I can create that. Okay, I'm good to go. I can create. I've created those 100 functions. 100, sorry, variables. Next, now I want to associate. I want to assign name for them as well. So name underscore one, name underscore two, name underscore three. Right. So then I again have to create 100 different variables. Now I have to create for class. Now I have to create for subject. Suppose I want to create something for subject. Suppose you have marks for physics, chemistry, maths, or something like that. Right. So you're giving physics marks to everyone. So it would be physics marks underscore roll number one, variable name, and then you're going to give the marks. Uh, the next case again, physics marks underscore roll number two, another variable, and you have to create 100 new variables like these. So it's a new task. And suppose the strength was very high. Suppose there are 500 people, or you're not taking example of only a class, only a section. You're talking about the entire college in consideration, or you take talking about the entire different colleges that I have. Suppose I have college in suppose. Punjab, Chandigarh, right? Delhi, you have a college in even outer, like you have a college in Dubai or somewhere like that. Suppose you have 3 to 4 different colleges, then you're not able to learn exactly that thing, right? So that's exactly why you're going to use the concept of data structures. Now, the thing of data structures is that lists can efficiently store them. Then you have data structures like list. You have created that. So basically, lists can store them in a more efficient manner. Then you have set, right? You have tuple. You have something known as dictionary. Dictionary stores them in key and value pairs. Uh, okay, so these are the concepts of your basic Python, your core Python. Then you have something like functions. So you can learn about what exactly functions do and what exactly is the case. Before I move to the concept of data science and what is the roadmap and everything, I will talk about that. I want to talk to you about the utilization of those things. So if I open up my GitHub, yeah, I don't think I'm logged in for that because this is a different browser than I'm using. Okay, I'm logged in. I'll show you the use cases. This is the core Python that we have talked about. Okay, let me share my entire screen. Can you guys let me know that if my entire screen is visible clearly? If it's possible, then it's perfect. Are you able to see this entire screen? Are you able to see my GitHub? Yes or no in the chats? Okay, perfect. Right, so this is my GitHub ID, and if I'm talking about data sets, so what exactly I'm going to do is, this is the huge amount of data sets that I have. Okay, now I want to utilize these data sets into my collab. What exactly I'm going to do is, I'm going to open up collab. I have to import a few libraries. Import pandas as PD. Why are you using PD? Because it's an alias. Okay, now there are certain piece of commands that you can execute without using anything, like import something, pip install. Pip install is to install the certain kind of libraries. It's not that all the libraries are installed in your local host. If you're using the very first time you're going to programming, you have to write every piece of code on your own, right? I'll quickly wrap it up, don't worry. If I'm writing git, so it's git clone, and then you provide the entire link for the repository. So what exactly it's going to do is it's going to clone up the entire library. If I'm talking about using an underscore, like an exclamatory mark symbol, why? Because it is executing the certain piece of code in your terminal. Okay, now it will clone up everything here inside your files. So whatever I have here, the entire data sets, everything is going to be loaded inside this collab link. Or if you're using a Jupyter notebook, or you're using VS Code, or you're using Cursor, you can do the same piece of code and everything would be installed in your local thing. So you can see a lot of data sets are present. I'll just show you a simple use case. If I'm creating DF, that's a data frame. If I'm opening up the concept of something like this, if I'm writing pd.py, why? Because it is going to read the entire concept of the CSV file. If I'm talking about this Airbnb, I'll just copy the path for this and I will paste the entire thing. And now if I run df, voila. That's the use case of why we're using pandas, a library. It's going to load up the entire table for you in this, and then now you can do all the execution that you want to do. So that's how Python programming language is very helpful to you for your entire journey as a data analyst. Now, this is just your core concepts that are needed. As a data analyst, you're going to use this, and then there's something known as EDA. So you do exploratory data analysis on your data sets, and then you work your way through. Now, that's all about Python that we have. Now let's talk a little about data science. I'll tell you the industry relevance of the things that we're going to learn. So data science is a field in which you have a lot of content going on. You have, if I'm talking about very briefly, I'm going to sum it up. So if I'm talking about the concept of data science, initially you have things like machine learning. Okay. Initially what happened is the concept was that I want to smarten up the machine. So use the whatever concepts of machine knows, then you taught everything to that. And the first thing that you taught to machine was your mathematics. So you taught about mathematics, you talked about how mathematics work, your linear regression, you have your stats, you have your algebra, you have calculus, everything. So you taught everything to the machines, and that is something known as machine learning. Okay, so machine uses those statistics, your mathematical concept, to create these modules. You have to create these functions, right? These models, if I'm talking correctly, right? So these are the models that are being created. The basic model that we are creating is, again, if I bifurcate them, you have machine learning. Machine learning is further bifurcated: supervised, unsupervised, reinforced. So supervised is that you provided a data set and you have a supervisor standing that if you're doing something wrong, he's going to tell you, right? Unsupervised is something that learns on its own. Regression is the concept of rewards. So if he's going in the right direction, just give him rewards and everything. That's how machine learning is developed. Now, later what happened is that we got to know that, yes, because we have evolved to this point, now we can evolve it much more further, right? So how we can evolve it much more further is through the concept of deep learning. So your traditional problems like CPUs were not able to handle certain piece of code. We have a PPT that is going to be much more better rather than that. Yes. So if I talk about the basic things, yeah, this is the entire diagram, entire flow chart for the entire thing. So this is your basic concepts of data science. You have your deep learning, machine learning, and AI. AI is overall talking about creating the entire thing, creating the entire machine in a smart way. Then you had your machine learning, and then you finally have deep learning. Deep learning is something that you developed because you had the idea, you had the resources to use a much more faster thing, right? So you traditionally move to GPUs, and once you move to GPUs, then you can solve much more complex problems. If I talk about complex problems, let me move my slide to those questions. Okay. Yeah, these are the concepts that you can do using machine learning. So through machine learning, you can understand that you have certain area and you have a certain price. Suppose for 3400 area, this is the price. So 4000 area, this is the price. And through this, it has understood the relation between area and price. And finally, if I ask it to print and give me the price for an area 8000, using these relations, it can exactly tell me that what exactly the price is going to look like. If I talk about, these are your basic simple machine learning. If I talk about neural networks follows the concept of complex problems. So these are your complex problems that you have your cats, you have your dogs. Now you wanted to understand that, yeah, this is a cat and this is a dog, right? So these are your complex that you had. And these are solved using the concept of deep learning, or yeah, deep learning is the concept that we're going to do, right? So yeah, that's how deep learning is going to help you. And then you have furthermore concepts like you have specialization. So you can either specialize in either NLP, that is your natural language processing, or you can go towards OpenCV, that is you can talk about visually appealing things like whatever. The thing is that you gave computers a vision. That means you gave them access to your camera. Now they can analyze everything. One more thing that I want to talk about was the concept of Gen AI, that is generative AI, right? So What is exactly Gen AI is talking about generative AI. That means you are generating something. The basic difference between AI and Gen AI is that AI can predict something and Gen AI can generate something. That's the major thing. The chat GPT or your LLM models that you're using, they are generating new content out of the blue. Right? They're creating new visuals, they're creating new videos, they're creating new images. That's all they're doing using the concepts of Gen AI. Okay. I'll tell you about the industry. I'll show you the industry use case. I'm actually working on one of the project. So if you've heard the name, there's a term known as if you've worked on VS Code, I'll start with that. If you've worked on VS Code, you have something known as GitHub Copilot. Okay, so what exactly Copilot is doing? It's an LLM model that can help you solve certain piece of code and do the execution at once. Right, so it is evolving that fast that even if you ask it to do certain piece of code, it can create the entire package and everything that is needed. Okay, there's something known as Taskmaster. I'll just tell you a basic about it. So this is Taskmaster. Okay, what exactly Taskmaster does is it will help you with solving the tasks. Now, here you have to understand that you are going to work in cross teams. This is something that I'm telling you inside from how as a data scientist able to work out. Right. So what is happening is there's a product developer on top of you. So he's going to tell you that okay, this is the product that we're going to work on. This is the entire way of how we're going to do that. Right. And then you as a data scientist are going to work on things that okay, if this is something that we're going to do, how exactly I can plan this and everything. Right. So there's something known as PRD, that is project report development, and then you have an FRD, that is functional report development. Now, I'm telling you the things that are happening in the industry, right? That's some project that I'm working. So you have something known as Cursor. Okay. Now, what exactly Cursor is? Cursor is again similar to VS Code, and Cursor itself has an AI agent. Okay. So recently I created a project on AI proctoring. What is AI proctoring is if you are looking straight and I cannot demonstrate right now because it will take a lot of time to load up and load all the dependencies. So what is happening is if I'm looking straight in the camera and I am solving a certain piece of test. Now, if someone appears in the frame that is apart from me, that is someone different from me. So initially it collaborated, it understood my entire face, and then there's someone else apart from me. Then it is going to understand that yes, this is someone different. So it will take a snapshot of the entire thing. Now you must be wondering that it is very difficult. The project that you're talking about seems little technical or difficult. I'll tell you how easy it is to create using these AI agents. You just have to create a PRD, that is a project report development. You have to have a file that will tell you that this is how certain things work. Your developer, your manager is going to tell you that this is how the things are going to work. This is everything that is going to do. So if you place that thing inside Taskmaster that I just showed you, this is your Taskmaster. If you place that inside this, it will generate tasks for you, like your day, task 1, task 2, task 3, and in similar manner. If you talk to the Cursor AI and just ask it to execute the task 1, it will execute that for you. Similarly, task 2, it will execute that for you. Every way it is going to execute all the tasks. And you can manually test them, that whatever he is doing, is it correct or not? And voila, whatever project was being done for 3 or 4 months, or for a single guy, it was taking 1 month to create the entire thing. Using your Cursor and using your PRD, using your Taskmaster, you can do the same piece of code in 2 hours. So that is the place that we have reached right now. And the key point to understand this is that there's a lot of things that is going on in the industry, that the AI is going to take my job or something like that. The case is that if you understand AI, how to utilize AI, you utilize those things and you execute on that part, then AI is not going to take your job. It's going to amplify whatever task you're doing. The major point in this is that if a certain piece of task took you 2 days to work, right? Now, using the concepts of AI and everything, what the company wants from you is much more faster execution. So if it is taking 2 hours, I don't want you to take 2 hours. I want you to do that within 4 or 5 hours. Someone with that capability is going to survive in the market. Okay, That's the entire thing about Python, and that's the entire thing about data science. Now, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. How much mathematics and stats is required? Mathematics and stats is something that is a fundamental. So if you're utilizing those libraries, you have something known as linear regression. You don't need to create that model, but you can create that model as well. For creating that model, you're going to need the concept of mathematics. For utilizing that, you should know that, okay, these and these elements are existing. I can just pick and drop them, and everything is going to work. If you're going towards the research side, then you're going to need a lot of maths. If you're going towards the execution side, you're not going to need that much. I heard that fresher usually not hired for data scientists. Is it true they prefer master or PhD? It is, yeah. I'll say that some companies do that, some companies don't, because again, they want someone who has experienced this firsthand rather than giving them a data which they can using something they can give me wrong results or they can jeopardize the entire project. They want someone that is reliable. But you can supplement that how using certain projects that you have already done. You can supplement your knowledge that yes, I have worked in this field and I know how things work. Okay. So create certain projects. There's no certain things. If you can find internships, you guys are in great colleges. You can easily find internships, right? Question from Aryan. I have interest in gaming development part. Have explored libraries like Turtle, Pygame. I explored them, built some basic visuals. But when it comes to going to the next step, like making it more perfect one, what things I need to do, like what after Python. So if you've created something, a game, now you want to, the game is either on the basic fundamental level, like it can just, suppose you've created a game of Sudoku or something like that. You've created a basic Sudoku, or you have a visual like us. You had games earlier that was Snake. Snake was moving, it eats the food, and then the size, and then that's and that. Right? So games like these are very basic. Okay, that's the first part. Advancing them, going to the next stage involves including more dependencies, so that including a world, that means including the entire dimensionality of the game. Okay, that is something you as a developer can do. You can increase the game size altogether, or you can focus on adding new functionalities. If I'm talking about increasing the entire thing, how is it that you're enhancing the entire base? That is, if it was visually just for a single line path, that means if you're moving, if the character is moving forward, it is moving backward, you can add elements like you have a world, you can add elements like sun, moon, something like that. Otherwise, you can, if I'm talking about adding more things, adding more complexities to it, that means now your character can jump, your character has a sword and can slash through things. That's something that you can do. Then how will we crack data science job as a fresher? What will be the roadmap for us? Just one second. Right. So as I mentioned, that how will I crack data science jobs as a fresher, and what would be the path or roadmap for us? So the path and roadmap for you would be to understand, first of all, programming language, that is Python, and then you have to have the basics of data analytics done. So you should know how to move, how the movement of data works, how exactly data manipulation works, right? Things like these, and then you should understand the concept of data science. How data science exists? What are the different models? Like you have machine learning. When is machine learning used? What is deep learning? When is deep learning used? What is NLP? When it is used? What is OpenCV? When it is used? Right? Every pros and cons. And then inside, if I'm using machine learning, then which model do I have to use? So you need to learn about all those things. That's a perfect roadmap. So take up machine learning first, understand about supervised, unsupervised, regression based. Then you can understand, you can learn about these things. Now each and every model you can utilize them, which model is good. Then you can move to concepts like unsupervised. So you talked about supervised, unsupervised. It's also boiled down into multiple things. Which technique should be used at which point? When should I use supervised? When should I use unsupervised? Right? Things like these. And then you have concepts like deep learning. What is neural network? How the entire path of neural network work? What is RAG? Okay, RAG is a term that is asked in a lot of interviews right now. So understand the terminology like RAG. How do you work on what is exactly feature engineering? how exactly do you work on imbalanced data set? Because you as a data scientist are going to work on, first of all, creating the data in that manner that it is understandable to the model and finally it is giving output, right? So these are all the entire things that you should do. Sir, I'm CSC. I'm heard that Cloud 3.0 and 4.0 integrated with AI will create more or less jobs. It will create more jobs. It is going to create more jobs, but it is going to create more refined and niche specific job. That means you should have a concept of AI. You should know how cloud works. Then only you're suitable for that. Okay, so there are a lot of dependency that are going to be involved. But yeah, jobs are going to be created. So it is going to be very niche specific. That means you have to devote your heart and soul to understand AI and cloud, then only you can work, right? Okay. Okay. Quick, what are the quick necessary things that are required for data science? Quick necessary things is just basic overview of data science. You should know about data science. What are different things? When should one thing use something like that? What are the new advancements that are coming in the industry? Like, okay, machine learning is one thing. Machine learning is happening. A lot of things is happening and everything. But term like Gen AI is coming with the picture, how Gen AI is evolving. Read articles, read blogs, watch about YouTube videos. You have a lot of content. So, which courses do you recommend for niche specific path? First of all, identify your niche. If you're going for a data scientist, you're going for a data analyst, then one thing should be clear that you're going for these position itself. Don't sway away for things like different things like Android development, or you have React.js, you have Merge Stack, right? So this is because this is a different concept. I'm not saying you to get inside data science, but if you're going towards that, be focused on that path itself. If I'm talking about DSA, DSA is logic building. So if you're talking about MAN companies, you have your fan companies. They are holding around for DSA right now. Otherwise, DSA itself is logic building, so not exactly explicitly asked in data science, but yeah, if you're talking about interviews, then they are going to ask for that, right? Okay, so I guess that's it for the session. Does AI take over cybersecurity? How much does it can contribute? Yes. So AI and cybersecurity is a deadly combination. It is something of an emerging field right now. There are things that are being talked about, how cybersecurity can be enhanced using AI and how AI can be enhanced using cybersecurity, right? So both the things are comparatively new right now, and this is anything associated with AI is necessary and a demanding field, right? That's the crux that I'm going to stop this session with, because I think I've talked about a lot of this and we have covered a lot of questions as well. Where to practice mathematics and how much do we need to practice? Okay, for mathematics, basic concepts like you algebra, your basic integration differentiation, your calculus, right? These are the major things that are needed. Uh, Algebra, calculus, yeah, these are the only things that are needed for you. Just understand these and try to yeah, matrices and all that is inside algebra. Don't try to explicitly learn this and then go for data science. Instead, learn data science, and if you encounter something that okay, this is using the concept of maths and I don't know the concept of maths, then go for that. Because learning maths is one thing, then learning about data science is going to take a lot of time. So rather, what I'll tell you is that's totally dependent on you. That's totally dependent on you. Go for traditional books or apply on code. I go for more practical things. I work with traditional code. I'll understand it's much more better. I don't. It's not like that. I study a concept. I try to create a project revolving around it so that I can understand it that in a much more better. Okay. So that's it for today's session. Thank you, everyone. Now, if the moderators can take care of it.
Thank you, Harshvardhan sir. This was truly a valuable session. And really a big thanks to you, sir, for your time, guidance, and clarity. And to everybody here, we hope you're leaving with fresh insights and confidence in Python. And do not forget, keep experimenting, stay curious, and code consistently. Thanks again for joining us, and see you all in the next session. Take care and good night.
And one more thing that I would like to add, in case I was not able to answer any of you guys' doubts, then I'll ask the moderators and the secretaries to please distribute my LinkedIn ID throughout the meeting. So in case you have any doubts, you can directly connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll help in any way possible. Okay?
Sure, sir.
Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, moderators, for taking care of the session. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. And a gentle reminder to all the IITM students, please do fill the feedback form. I have pinned it in the chat box in order to get your certificates.